NJ.com and the Star Ledger welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start chopping.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. An easy peasy 26-23 victory over Virginia Tech. Yeah, it was something. That was a wild game. Anyone, I kind of tweeted this, anybody would have signed for a 26-23 victory in Blacksburg. But man, the way that game turned out, certainly there were some therapists who would be earning their hourly wage this week. How you fellas doing? How was the trip back from Blacksburg? How was the trip overall?
Very good. I thought it was a great experience. I thought my going through Greensboro worked out great. So I loved it.
I saw a new part of the country I had never seen. I saw that the South is beautiful and unexplored, and I very nearly had a heart attack in the press box as Rutgers, a game that practically was over, turned into this maniacal last-second deadline story. We had to rejigger 100 times. So the juices were flowing throughout the trip.
Yeah, it's funny. And for people that don't, we talk about it during the game, like, what are we going to write? And so on our text chain, like it's 23-7. They're driving for what looked like was going to be a touchdown. And I text, like, I think I'll write a big picture column about how this sets up for a great season. And then like a half an hour later, like, no, I'm going to write that this is the worst loss of Greg Schiano's era. That's how quickly it shifted. And Greg Schiano said as much afterward. He's like, look, there were a lot of ebbs and flows in that one. I think what bothered people are not the ebbs and flows, but some of them seem certainly self-inflicted. Let's talk about that. I mean, you guys asked Greg about a couple of those decisions, fourth and goal from the one, the pass play there. I think a lot of people had trouble with that. And I'll be honest, it didn't bother me at the time when it was happening, but I was getting a text simultaneously from someone in the Rutgers world. And it just said, why wouldn't you go for field goal and go up 3 scores here? And I'm like, come on, that's not going to be a problem. And sure enough, it was. And then the field goal attempt was just downright wacky. That's the only way I can describe it.
So I have a lot of thoughts here. I think going for it on 4th and 1 in that situation is the right call. I love the aggressive play calling. You got to give the ball to your running back. You had Sam Brown playing the best he's looked since his freshman year. You have one of the best running backs in the country in Kyle Monangai. I know Virginia Tech was expecting it. I know they were stacking the box. Everyone would have predicted that to happen. But you still got to give them the ball and hope your offensive line, which has gotten so much praise over the first 3 games, can just shove them back, a much smaller Virginia Tech defensive front, and get it to the end zone. That was the thing. The play call, they ran the same play that worked 100 times before, where they fake the handoff and throw it to Kenny Fletcher. Virginia Tech saw it a mile away. They had 2 guys covering Kenny Fletcher right when he came out of the flat. It was very predictable for Virginia Tech's end, and they made the stop. Again, decision fine, play call not great.
Right. Pat, before you jump up, Pat, did you like the decision and the play call?
Yeah, I liked the decision. Hated the play call for exactly the reasons Brian said. I'm curious, Brian, since you rewatched it, was it a play fake, the same play fake rollout? Okay, that doesn't work on 4th and goal at the 1, right? Like everyone is expecting you to run. The reason it worked 100 times before was because Virginia Tech had 9 guys in the box and they're all thinking run. So then you pull it out and you throw it and it's a great play. It's not a great play at the goal line. So yeah, hated the play call. I don't mind going for it there. The field goal was ridiculous too.
I want to go on that, right? So Greg Schiano's reasoning with that was he was staying aggressive, which is similar to the 4th and 1 at the goal line. The same logic. You're being aggressive. I am all about that. I have always been a fan of Greg Schiano being a more aggressive play caller in this second tenure. I thought it was a bit ambitious because Jay Patel had never hit a 53-yarder in his career. And he's not exactly a powerful leg. He's more of an accuracy guy. But again, he missed a 36-yarder earlier in the game, so it's hard to tell what his confidence was at that point. They were, first of all, they commit a delay of game, make it a 58-yarder. You're probably going to punt there. They're, gifted offside penalty, make it a 53-yarder again. I can understand the logic of wanting to take the field goal after getting that gift, and B, wanting to get the field goal as a way of making up for the missed opportunity on the 4th and 1 where they could have kicked an easier field goal. I totally get the reasoning. I just don't think you kick that field goal. I just don't see the upside for Jay Patel with the risk of kicking it from that far. I just don't. I thought it was not a great decision.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight in 2020, of course, but when you got the delay of game, you're thinking, okay, you're giving yourself extra room to punt here, and then they send the field goal unit back out anyway. Like it was
what
just
was going to happen there? Would
they
snap the ball there if they didn't jump off sides?
Right, exactly. If they kicked it from 58 yards, I think we could have burned down this podcast. We'd be burning down this podcast.
Right. And it's fascinating because I think there's like a tendency for Rutgers fans to immediately when something like this happens, the longtime fans get back to the Greg Schiano 1.0 when there were a ton of games like this where the narrative was always he's the perfect coach for everything but 3 hours on Saturday. And I haven't really felt that way. This is kind of funny. I haven't really felt that way this time around. I think he's been a much better game day coach. I don't think he's had just a game where you're like, what the heck happened? He's obviously had some games they've lost, but I haven't had a game like where you're just like, geez, what in the world is he doing? That's the first time I've kind of felt that way about him in this game. And the fact they won, I think he's had to shrug it off, right? I mean, you can't lose your mind about it.
Okay.
Right. What I was going to say is Brian asked really good questions about those two specific plays. I would have liked, in my own film review of our press conference, I would have liked to have asked Greg, what was your evaluation of your coaching performance today? That would be a little more succinct and not necessarily that he'd find a way not to answer it, but I think that would have been a great question if I could go back and do it again.
Sure. He kind of did in a sense when we asked him about that 4th and 1 call at the goal line. And he said, you have 12 seconds to make a decision. You spend the whole week game planning for these situations to make the decisions. I totally understand that. I just think that, again, nobody in the stadium or outside of it would have questioned if you gave the ball to your running back on 4th and 1 at the goal line. I think that's kind of the obvious thing. And two, the second thing, again, I love the fact he said they were being aggressive on those two plays. My bigger question, as far as an even bigger decision in my mind, is when they had a 4th and goal, not a 4th and goal. I think it was a 4th and 1 or a 4th and 2 near midfield after that, and they decided to punt it in plus territory. That to me was
40-yard line. Yeah, it was. That was
that to me is maybe and that was when Virginia Tech was surging offensively and playing with some momentum, which you can believe in it or not. But Greg Schiano mentioned it himself in his press conference. Yeah. So I think if you're there in that situation, that's the one they should have gone for, and they didn't. So it just, none of it made sense to me. And it felt like everything was snowballing on top of each other. And it almost felt like, I would love to ask Greg this. I don't know if he'd be able to answer this, but it almost felt like he was playing on tilt. It was like when you're playing in blackjack and you get 21 a couple times and you just want to get all the money back at once. It felt like he was coaching on tilt. And look, ultimately it didn't cost him the game, but it really almost, the way I view this game is the opposite, whatever the opposite of a moral victory is. Right? Sometimes you lose a game where it felt like you played really good. Yeah. They won a game where they probably should have lost, and you probably don't feel great after this. And they did that because they shot themselves in the foot so many times when they didn't have to.
Right. I will say this, and let's be fair. They won the game because they made 2 incredible plays after all that happened. So let's get that credit. The screen pass call was just we're going to talk about that forever because of this podcast could be called the Rutgers non-existent screen pass. Was just a brilliant call. Ian Strong greatly executed, 65 yards. I mean, imagine if that drive stalled out, what we'd be thinking about that game, and to get it right away, like no stress, no 3rd and 8, no nothing. It was just first play, bang. That was the big one. And then look, I mean, Robert Longerby makes a great play. And I think that was, and I'd love to, another question we can ask, I think that was a cornerback blitz, at least it looked like on screen. So for him to make the leaping play, bat it in the air, catch it, and to end the drive because after the field goal put them up by 3, when Drones had all that time, Virginia Tech had all the momentum, I was certain that this game was they're going to lose this on a last second touchdown. Instead, again, the drama was trying to figure out how much timeouts, how much time was left. And that's the third most important thing. Give them credit for getting the first down when they needed to. Kyle Monungai wasn't his best game, goes out there in a crucial situation behind that line and make sure that they can win the game on offense and kneel down and take it. So you got to give the players credit at the end of that game.
players deserve a lot of credit, and they were faced with a lot of adversity. The offense picked up the defense, and that's what teams do. That's like when in critical situations, you want a well-rounded win. And one unit didn't play great, but another did at different moments. So I think what you saw today or in this game was just some resiliency from a team that found a way to win. And that's what good teams do to me. They find ways to win. Conversely, teams that lose close games it comes down to coaching and misexecution. I thought Rutgers executed at a very high level despite some poor coaching decisions like we talked about. So I thought the players deserve a lot of credit.
I have so many thoughts that these things just keep running to my mind as we're talking about this. So let me just dump a bunch of stuff out. Screen pass. Pat made an excellent observation at the game. I would have never realized this. The screen pass last year, again, they had one against Michigan that led to a pick six they were going to lose the game anyway, but that really shut the door. It was a back-breaking pick six. And now almost the same play call. Pat asked Greg, and Greg smiled, so I'm taking it as a yes. It was almost the same play call as the one against Michigan. Nice full circle moment, and as Pat wrote, kind of shows some improvement in the offense. Rutgers, in Kirk Ciarrocca's 16 games of his second stint so far, has thrown a total of 10 screens, 10 screen passes in 16 games. 8 last year and 2 this year. That one obviously was the most successful one by far. And as Pat said in Blacksburg, this podcast has now fixed the train horn and the screen passes. What's next, fellas? We could fix anything. We could world hunger, maybe. I mean, we're on an absolute roll here to start the season. Another decision that just came to mind as we were talking about this. On a drive during the third quarter when things were kind of rolling apart, right at the end of the third quarter, Rutgers gets the ball pretty high up near midfield. They do a pass play on first down, get sacked. They get a pass play on second down, get sacked. Now they're facing a 3rd and 24, and they have to pump the ball back to Virginia Tech, and that ultimately leads for their first touchdown drive. Rutgers running backs were getting 6 yards a pop in the third quarter. Why not give them the ball? I just don't. I know fans were going crazy about that. Why not just run the ball, run out the clock? Don't overthink it.
Play with the lead. Yeah, exactly.
Right. That's not the worst thing. I think I can justify throwing the ball there on first down. Your offensive line had given up 1 sack all season. I get it, but I also understand the frustration of just wanting to throw the ball.
I think that took Kirk Ciarrocca from an A+ to an A- overall in the game. That little sequence, because before that, I just thought he's brilliant, and it's just a great game. Called an excellent game. And I think about this a lot because in that early goings, you can see right away the formula here of Kyle Monangai up the middle, gaining all these yards, the grind. It's just not going to work against this defense. And they did something else. They had the little rollouts with Athan Kaliakmanis. I'm going to mispronounce his name every time since you pointed that out, Fonseca. Just going to tell you right now. They had the nice rollouts, Kenny Fletcher getting involved, Diary Miller over the middle, all of this stuff. And all these guys, with Sam Brown too, all 4 of those guys were not on this team last year, right? So essentially with Brown's injury. So we're seeing what this offense can be with some talent involved. And I kind of like it, and they really do trust the quarterback. That is evident to me. And that's so important. I mean, that if you're one takeaway from this game that above anything else that should give you hope is that they're not playing this offense like they're scared to death every time he drops back to pass. In contrast, they want him to throw the ball. This is an offense that's in a good place.
I couldn't agree more. You nailed it there. They have a lot of confidence in Athan. Athan's giving them a lot of confidence because he's performing at a high level. There's no question about it. And I want to bring it back to what we said on the podcast leading into the game was that this was going to be a critical moment for Athan because Virginia Tech is going to commit defensively to shutting down the run, as any team would, right? Rutgers' strength is running the ball, shut down the run. That has to be your goal. But then the balance has to be there. You have to have a quarterback to be able to beat loaded boxes. And he did that. Ciarrocca called great plays with play fakes and play action to trick the defense, and it just worked time and time again. Every time there was a pass to Kenny Fletcher, it was off play action. And like I wish I tracked it in the moment of how many completions came off play action, because it was a lot. And I thought that was super effective. A great offensive play calling game. If there's anything outside of a takeaway that I wanted to bring up is the defense was once again not great. The pass rush was there. They got the safety with Wesley Bailey on that crazy play, but I still want to see them finish. It's a problem that's dated back to last season. They're getting to the quarterback and not finishing, which is I don't know. I don't know how you can teach that or improve that.
Yeah.
Sorry, a few things. Pat, you did not track the play actions, but PFF did. He was
nice.
8 of 9 out of play action.
Wow, that is yeah.
The only drop he had was when they did the 4th and 1 call at the goal line. They ran the same play. Virginia Tech read it, and he had to throw it in the dirt. Otherwise, he was perfect. I want to give credit to Kirk Shiraka play calling this. It's very easy to not want to go back to the same play because you become predictable, but he did not fight the temptation to get cute. He ran the same play over and over, and it worked every time. It's not broke. Don't fix it. Keep running it. I thought that was just very smart, simple things to do. With Athan, a couple of things were very encouraging to me. He was really smart as far as scrambling out of the pocket when he felt pressure. He got sacked 3 times, but it could have been more. They got pressured 10 times, but he always was able to kind of find the right time to relieve the pressure, run out of the pocket. Didn't gain many yards, but he avoided some sacks and turned what could have been negative plays into positive plays. I thought that was very encouraging. He did not force the ball to anybody. That, from what I saw, no real bad throws that could have been, turnovers or anything. He always found his 3 more popular targets in Kenny Fletcher, who had 7 catches. That's the most catches by a Rutgers tight end since Tyler Croft in 2013. 11 years. Great. Kenny Fletcher has been a tight end for 3 games, and he is the best tight end Rutgers has had in over a decade. Think about that.
It's amazing.
That's huge credit to Kenny Fletcher, and that's pretty bad reflection on the tight end play at Rutgers over the past decade. Anyway, Kenny Fletcher was a great target. Dymir Miller is looking like the number 1 wide receiver Rutgers really needed, constantly getting open, gaining chunk yardage, making some tough plays. Ian Strong had the 2 biggest plays offensively, I think, this entire game. We're going to point to the screen. Obviously, game-changing, game-winning play. In the first half, he made a catch when Athan threw it behind his back, adjusted his body, converted a big 3rd down that led to a touchdown drive. Those are plays you need your wide receivers to make. Athan has to make a better throw, but it's always helpful to have guys who can make plays like that. Rutgers has not had wide receivers like that. To Pat's point on the defense, I totally agree. The defense is not playing up to its reputation this season. Listen, they forced a fumble. They got a safety. They had some big plays. They generally held Virginia Tech in check for the first 3 quarters. They were awful in that 4th quarter. They were getting absolutely gashed, and
they were gassed. I think
they were not gassed. They were gassed.
Gassed and couldn't tackle. Yep.
Robert Longerbeam said they weren't gassed. I believe him. They played 20 minutes on the field. Rutgers had the most time of possession of any game since Ohio in 2011. The last time Greg Schiano was the head coach is the last time they had the ball this much. They weren't on the field that much. They could not have been gassed. They were just getting killed by Virginia Tech's playmakers. And to Pat's point, they just could not tackle. And that is very concerning to me. I think again, they played well, I think, most of the game, but the moments that it was bad, it was really bad.
Right. I think, there are a couple, you're absolutely right. And it's really funny to be in this position where we're feeling good about the offense and we're feeling about the defense. The 3 games now getting to the running backs getting to the edge is a big problem. And we haven't talked about it yet, but if Drones was more accurate, Virginia Tech would have won this game because they had 2 guys, not 1 step, not 2 step, twice. He was 3 steps behind the defense and they overthrew him both times.
Daquan Felton, twice.
Yes, twice.
And he's the guy that got behind the Rutgers defense last year for the long touchdown.
Yes.
It was crazy.
That was a big concern. And I when you see that happen, I feel okay about it. I get it. They're not bringing him down. It's hard to bring Drones down. He's physical, good, mobile quarterback. You're forgetting Lewis did get to him on that one play.
I know.
And that was a great,
on his arms.
That poor guy. Once he gets the sack, I hope he has a dance ready, Aaron Lewis, because man, he's been so close so many times. But I wonder, even with, and this is the full defense with Powell and Bailey back. Should we be worried, or is it kind of a case of, it's still a work in progress?
I think I'm cautious. I'm cautious to say worried because Powell played a lot, but he didn't play the full game.
Right.
Obviously, in his first game back, he's got to work through a lot of things. Wesley Bailey, same thing. But Rutgers has so much better depth, and I thought that's why you wouldn't see them being worn down the way they rotate guys on the defensive line. They have 4 or 5 capable linebackers, 4 or 5 capable cornerbacks. You saw Bo Masco in there a lot. The safeties obviously are high level players. So I'm not hitting the panic button. I thought they played well. Virginia Tech didn't get to the red zone until the second half.
That's a good point. Great point.
Right.
Fourth quarter.
Or fourth quarter even. So
7 points until keep that in mind.
But how did it wear down so quickly is the question. And maybe that's more of just a conditioning. I don't know. Not panicking, but I'd like to see a little, like I came into the game wanting to see pass rush. I think the pass rush was there again, just didn't finish. So we'll see. I think there's room for improvement.
I think just to kind of set the expectations here, I think we agree they have a good defense. I don't think we're saying the defense is bad, but I think we expected them to be great, to take that step forward. I haven't seen that. I was encouraged by the big plays, the safety, the huge pick from Robert Longerbeam, the forced fumble. Like the big plays were very impressive, and most drives were good. Again, the pass rush, I know Kyron Jones is a mobile quarterback, but they haven't just gotten to the quarterback for 3 games now. And it's been an issue since last year. They're creating so much pressure. They just can't knock the quarterback down. That is the next step, I think. Robert Longerbeam made the big plays, had some missed tackles as well. It was really up and down day from him. Made the plays when it mattered, no doubt. Just haven't seen him become that lockdown guy, at least not in this game. I thought Eric Rogers had an excellent game, punched out a ball that probably could have been a fumble recovery, but wasn't. Listen, I just think they have the pieces there. I think Joe Harris-Sumiak is a great coordinator who can make all these pieces work. They just haven't put it all together yet. And I think until they do that, they're just not going to be as good as we expected them to be, I think. I think that's the one missing piece, is that defense taking the next step. Oh, and on Aaron Lewis celebrating, by the way, look at when Rutgers did force that fumble in the third quarter and watch that clip. I put it in the film review. I'm not going to do the celebration live here. I just thought it was a very funny celebration. And on that fumble recovery, big thing to mention, Daryl Jabomi had a great game against Howard, was not great against Akron, excellent against Virginia Tech, had maybe his best game, forced that fumble, was great in coverage, was a sure tackler. I thought he had his best game as a Scarlet Knight, and that's very encouraging to do that when he's playing alongside Tyrone Powell, and you feel really good about the linebacker core, I'd say, right now.
I'm afraid to read the film review because it'll give me flashbacks to watching the game on the ACC network, because the ACC network was bad. Holy crap, were they bad? I mean, sound quality, like the Rutgers Rant. We have better sound than, how is it possible? We have better sound than the ACC network. I mean, good grief. You think I'm butchering name? Mark Helstrick. I'm going to butcher his name.
You just did, yeah.
What was that?
Mark Herzlich. Former Giant. Come on.
He's a former Giant. Yes. Cancer survivor Giant. I've written about him. I know it. He pronounced Shiraka like to the point where he said the name. And I'm like, who is he talking about? Because it just didn't, like, the letters didn't match just so many things. The camera jerking around. It was just really bizarre. Like, I mean, it was like watching Snyder High versus, Hoboken on some cable access channel. It was brutal. My goodness.
So the ESPN effect has not trickled down to ACC network, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I did not watch the full game on ACC network. Full transparency. I did see fans begging for Matt Millen. That's how bad it was. Exactly.
And then the commercials are like, everything seems so low, like 18 commercials for Gorilla Tape. I mean, the whole thing seems so very, I will say there's at least, because I actually subscribed to ESPN Plus thinking that we better get this ready for the game. At least they switched to the game, because I thought that was going to, we were going to get 800 texts. We'll be like, where's the game? I'm still watching. North Carolina lose 110-70 to James Madison. We're still watching that game because it was 7 hours long. It was something. I should have made the drive to Blacksburg. Take that back. All right. Looks like you're going to say something. No.
I normally, just to add some clarity to how I usually watch the game, I usually, when I'm in the press box, have my iPad and I listen to the broadcast live, just to pick up on anything that schematically that I may be missing, whatever. I couldn't even connect to the Wi-Fi on or I could connect to the Wi-Fi, but I couldn't play the ACC network stream because the Wi-Fi in Blacksburg was so bad.
I thought they said, did they have internet in Blacksburg?
It was
Had to
shaky.
climb up to the top of Lane Stadium and hook it onto the antenna. Is that what you?
Basically. So it was rough.
While we're on the press box, I do want to put in a comment from our fearless #1 listener, and Anthony Fusilli, who went up to the press box at halftime and said, "You have to say this on the rant. They did not provide us with food at halftime at Lane Stadium. My poor friend was starving all the way home." Called me
on Sunday to drive this point home. I couldn't even get an M&M. I couldn't even get a cookie. He was like, yeah, he was very fired up. Yeah.
If he stuck around after the game, he would have gotten some slices of Domino's pizza. Me and Pat went to town on about 4 slices each, whole pie. It was great. I was starving. And on James Madison, I just want to say, I did stay in Harrisonburg. The only time I've been in the city, and the same day they score 70 points. Just saying.
There you go. I'm just saying.
There you go.
All right, let's take some questions. I think the questions will cover the rest of the stuff. Thanks for subscribing to the Insider and for following us on Twitter at Rutgers Rant. You can also give us questions there. All right. This one comes up every week. It's kind of appropriate. Now that you've seen what you've seen, would you revise your preseason predictions, or is it all basically playing out true to expected form? I will say this. I've seen nothing that would make me revise my preseason prediction based on what I saw from Rutgers. And now watching the rest of the Big Ten, I certainly see nothing. But I watched some of that Southern Cal Michigan game. Southern Cal's, that was the one L I had. Definite L. They stink. I mean, I don't know. They got manhandled by Michigan. Michigan doesn't have a quarterback. They rushed for like 4 yards and still beat them. I mean, again, UCLA loses again. Again, no, it's LSU, but they lost again. Illinois looks better than I expected, but you're going to have that during the season.
Yeah.
And then I watched some of this game. I watched some of the Washington Northwestern game. They're talented, but I mean, they're not unbeatable either. So I picked 9-3, sticking with it. You guys, what do you think?
I saw someone out there. I don't know what bowl projection had it. Certainly not one of the ones. I saw this on social media. It might not even be true, but someone was commenting that somebody predicted 10-2, or Rutgers was going to go to the Citrus Bowl.
I saw that.
Oklahoma. Yes, you saw it, right?
24/7, I think. Yes.
I'm not making. Okay, I'm not making this up. If you go back to our preseason predictions, I predicted 10-2, playing Oklahoma in the Citrus Bowl.
Did you do? No, they're just yes. There you go.
So I will not change it now.
The money. Why
no
would
way.
you do it? Yeah.
I had him at 8-4. I still think that's probably the floor, honestly. Like, I think, well, I shouldn't say the floor, but I think that's the realistic scenario. I am more confident in the offense today than I was in the preseason. I'm a little less confident in the defense than I was, especially now that they don't have Mo Toure. So I'll call it a wash. I think Illinois has been more impressive than I thought it was. I thought that was an auto W. They looked awesome against Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
I still think Nebraska is good. Their quarterback is very impressive, even though he missed a surefire game-winning touchdown in the fourth quarter against Illinois. It happens if you're a true freshman. SC is not as great as we thought. I still think they're going to be a tough out in Los Angeles.
Too. Sure.
I still think 8-4, maybe leading 9-3. If you asked me in the first half on Saturday, I'd say this team was going 10-2. After this, I'm still staying at 8-4.
Right.
And again, which is fine. I think you would sign up for this after 3 games if this was the preseason.
Of course, yeah. And it just comes back to the same thing we talked about before the season. Whereas in previous years, 12 games, 6 of them, you're like, they're going to lose. There's no way they're going to win any of these 6 games. This is the first year that Rutgers has been because Greg Schiano has elevated the talent and improved the program, A, and B, because the schedule. First year in forever that there's not a single game on the schedule that is just ain't winning this. And that's
no question
the difference maker. All right, we got like 17 questions about this directed to our one and only AP voter on this panel. Do we get an AP vote from Samseka? Hey guys, do you think Rutgers gets ranked in the AP top 25 if they beat Washington, regardless of how they do it? What's it going to take for Fonseca to vote for Rutgers? They got 5 points from coaches, ? Does a win Friday get a vote? Okay. The floor is yours, AP voter, doing something you don't get paid for that you get all sorts of grief about. Fire away. You don't get paid, right? No.
I don't. It's a labor of love and respect for the game of college football. And the only price I pay is getting ambushed on my replies and DMs whenever I forget to rank Tennessee in the preseason, which in fairness, I look like a real bozo now after doing that.
Forgot to rank Tennessee.
I completely forgot. I mean, that's the honest truth. I could say that now. And I hope the one Tennessee listener listening to this podcast can go back to Knoxville and report.
It's Clay Travis. He's a big fan of the podcast. Yeah.
I hear. Complete oopsie on my end. Hand up. I messed up. Anyway, the answer is the same answer I give every week. It depends on the other results. It depends on how the bottom of the top 25 shakes out. It depends on how dominant Rutgers looks. The question I asked somebody who asked me this on Sunday is, looking at the first 3 games, at any point, and I'll ask you guys the same question, did Rutgers look like a top 25 team to you guys at any point?
The first half, sure. Absolutely. The first half of that game, it did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I got a rebuttal for you, Fonseca.
Please.
Do you vote for Washington State?
I did.
Okay. What's Washington State's best win?
Washington.
Ooh.
If Rutgers beats Washington,
look at this.
Would you vote for Rutgers?
I saw that coming from the moment he started this. He's going down this road. He's setting it up. Pat's got the whole. Yeah, it was good.
Easy. It's easy. Washington is the next team into the top 25, right? According to votes received. You know who second is? Second most votes received this week? Indiana.
I will say, I don't buy the Indiana hype. I did not vote for Indiana.
Wild.
Really?
They're playing Maryland this week. Maryland's getting 6.5 points on the road at Indiana.
Wow. Take those points too. Yeah. That's
a wild. That's a wild.
I did not vote for Indiana. I will say.
Okay. So back to my question. You see the logic here?
I do. I follow you. I should know this. I'm fairly certain Washington State won at Washington. Please correct me if I'm wrong here.
Not sure.
I don't remember.
Either way. Listen, maybe it depends on the bottom 5 of the AP poll. Essentially, for most voters, is just kind of like a choose your own adventure, right? There's about 15 teams you could justify putting in the bottom 5. Rutgers fans won't like to hear this, but for me, as the Rutgers beat writer, I have a higher threshold for Rutgers to be voted into the poll than any other team, right? I do not want to look like I am a homer. I think that's the essence of the AP poll too. I think not every, let's be clear here. There's a lot of beat writers on a lot of teams that overrate their teams, right? But to me, I think it's important that Rutgers earns the vote on my end. And I think that people ultimately should appreciate that, because when you do get that vote, which is certainly possible if they beat Washington, I'm not ruling it out. I think if they win dominantly, I almost will certainly put them in. But whenever I do put them in the AP top 25, it's because I feel like they are a top 25 team. I think if they beat Washington, there is a good chance. If they beat Washington and Nebraska, I'm saying right here, live on the Rutgers podcast, that I will vote for Rutgers in the AP top 25 if they are 5-0.
I mean, good grief. Let's hope so. My goodness, they give every right to drag you out of the press box and throw you into the Raritan if you don't do that. All right, good answer, though. I think it's fair. What you said is fair, totally. So leave him alone until he.
Would you guys have voted? If you had a vote, would you have voted them this week in the top 25?
No.
They haven't beaten anybody yet. No.
Next week is the one. Yeah, I think if you beat Washington at home, which is going to be their biggest game in a long time, you deserve a vote. 4-0, you win a tough road game, you win a big game at home. There's been hype all season. Now's the time. I think that's the time.
Right. All right. More questions. Clean play. How big is the dramatic reduction in costly penalties so far this year? It seems Rutgers is playing cleaner and smarter. Knock on wood for that one. Things can go sideways fast, but yeah, I mean, that seems like an accurate statement. What do you think it's attributable to?
Yeah, great question. Great question.
Coaching.
I think a lot of times Rutgers has gotten a lot of pass interference calls in the secondary, defensive holding. I think they've cleaned that up, and I don't know if it's just situational.
Remember all of the false starts at Iowa.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Has Gavin cleaned all this up? Gavin cleaned a lot of this up? I'm not Gavin. Athan over Gavin. I mean, is that possible that I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Mental fortitude, right? I just don't know. I don't know if there's you can put a finger on it.
Right.
So a couple things. What I would attribute to is good coaching, consistency in coaching staff, and consistency in players returning, veteran guys who have been on this team and been coached by the same staff, an offensive line that has not changed at all. They've used the same 5 guys practically the entire season. That certainly helps. And just for the numbers I just did the math really quick. Last year, they committed 66 penalties as a team. across 13 games. That's 5 penalties a game. Through 3 games this year, they've committed 12 penalties. That's 4 penalties a game. So at least 1 penalty per game less. But I will agree that it certainly feels like they've committed less costly penalties, and they do it less frequently. So I would agree with this question's premise.
Yeah. And we're still burning timeouts at completely random times. That one thing hasn't been corrected, but a minor point when you're 3-0 certainly. All right, Tush push came up a bunch. Your opinion of the Tush push? Hate the Tush push. It's stupid. Abandon the Tush push. Even the Eagles are done with the Tush push. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I can see the point, but they did score a touchdown out of the Tush push. It was another kind of cool little play. They've kind of got a Tush package, we should call it, without getting, creepy. What do you guys think? Tush? Done with Tush?
I'm done with it. Yeah, I'm done with it. I'm done with it because I thought, like in the NFL, a lot of teams tried it after the Eagles had so much success with it and realized that the Eagles are really good at it because Jalen Hurts is really good at it. I think at Rutgers, Gavin Wimsatt was really good at it, and I think Athan is good but not great. So I think to run it out every time on a 1 yard distance, I think is a mistake. Especially when you have two power running backs that you have a lot of faith in. So I wouldn't say completely done with it, but I don't want to see it every single time on third and 1 or 4th and 1.
Yeah. It's a little easier with Gavin Wimsatt than it was Athan, who, by the way, if I have one fear for this team right now, it's him getting hurt. Every time I see him, he is 6'1", 180 pounds. He's not Gavin, a tight end playing quarterback. He got hit a couple times, threw up. Yeah. Anyway.
How about his line after he threw up? We asked him about it, and he's like, Coach Schiano tells me to leave everything on the field, and I did today. Great line. I wonder if he workshopped it, or someone wrote it for him. If he has a ghostwriter. Either way, great line, very funny.
Great line.
And very smart of him because he makes that joke, and none of us followed up to ask. But seriously, why did you throw up? We never got. Very smart.
What the hell happened? Your intestines, concussion. What's the problem here? Yeah, I know.
One thing I want to say about the Tush push. The fact that they had to run a Rutgers Ruski, a fake Tush push, essentially, for it to be successful kind of shows me that they don't have enough people to push the Tush properly to be successful on the Tush push.
Right.
So I say you push the Tush push to the side and you move on to something else.
All right. This was a great point, and it didn't come up nearly enough because we're talking decisions. Why didn't Rutgers go for 2 when it scored to make it 22-7? That would have turned it into a 3-possession game. The rationale being, that Virginia Tech is already going to go for 2 in the situation if it's a 15-point lead, and then kick the extra point, presumably the next time to tie it. I think it's a really interesting point. I would love if I had endless time. There are a million things to ask Greg Schiano in his 10-minute press conference. This isn't one of them. Interesting question, though. I think the analytics guys would tell you to get it to 17 points there. You buying that?
I would love to see the analytics and the breakdown on that one. It's one of those. Not only to give weight to Schiano's answers about making these decisions in under 15 seconds, I can't do it certainly because I'm like, I don't know. And I've had 15,
make that your first question today just to see his head go. Yeah. Gone for 2 and it's 27. There's that. What? He would be like, yeah.
So first of all, apologize for getting out of the screen. My roommate's dog came into my room and I was worried.
This is a dog podcast. We know
dog
that
podcast.
Just wanted to explain. Second of all, he does have like a mad guy. His son, I believe it's Joe, is walking with him with a binder of all the scenarios of what to do. Like they are prepared for these situations. I don't know the exact math off the top of my head. I don't know. Thinking out loud here. If you kick an extra point, which is practically guaranteed, yes, you don't have a 3-score or a 2-score lead, but Virginia Tech has to convert 2 2-point conversions to tie the game. Obviously, they did it pretty easily, and it became a moot point.
But too easily, yeah.
But if you trust your defense and they only need to make 1 stop, and Virginia Tech still needs to score a 3rd time to take the lead, right? So I guess that's kind of part of the calculus, and you gotta trust your offense to convert it. I'm not sure if the juice was worth the squeeze. I don't really have a problem with that decision, though. it's always good to be up by 2 scores or 3 scores rather than 2 scores rather than 3 scores rather than 3. Jesus Christ.
3 scores rather than 2.
2. My gosh, you're mad. You're the math guy in the pod too. My goodness.
Oh, God.
All right, he's tired, man. It's been a long season already. All right, this is my favorite question so far from anybody. My daughter's wedding is Friday night. Should I, A, watch the game on my phone in the men's room? B, suggest we move the reception to the Provident Club? C, rig a positive COVID test and watch from home? Those are really good options. I will say this. I think we're missing some information to this texter. And thanks for the question. How many daughters do you have? I mean, if you've got another one in the pipeline, if you've got like 2 or 3 daughters, I say, honey, this is devastating. But look, I mean, just get the little red marker out, draw the line on the COVID test. I don't want to ruin this for all of your guests. Would a positive COVID test even get you out of a wedding these days? I think your daughter's just going to slap a mask on your face. You're going to have an awful night.
Yeah, daughter's father dance with the mask on.
So many questions. Did she schedule the wedding for a Friday night because it's football season?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, I'm not going to do it Saturday. My dad will kill me. And then they moved the game to Friday night. There's a lot I want to know about this. I feel bad for her.
Oh, this sucks. Oh man.
I think that is the case. I think you nailed it. That she probably did a Friday wedding just so her father could watch the big Rutgers game, and it completely blew up in her face. Here's my suggestion out of left field. I agree with you. COVID, it's 2 years too late for COVID, pal. You got COVID, go to the wedding anyway. Deal with it. It's your daughter's wedding. So what? Anyway, I am giving terrible advice to all of our listeners between Sue and Somerset. And
Sue from Somerset's like, she's taking the popcorn. Where's Brian going with this?
Here's my out of the box suggestion. If he has not gotten a vasectomy, do what they do in March Madness to get out of work. Get a vasectomy 2 days before and say, sorry, honey, I got to stay home and rest. Enjoy your wedding, and I'll see you for, your sister's wedding or your brother's wedding. I think that's the only real option you have, and just doctor a document to show you, set this appointment 2 years ago. Otherwise, you got to go.
And if he's got a daughter in college, he does not need a vasectomy at this point. It's already too late for that. Sorry.
As we have heard on the text service as well, he's also going to be getting the updates at the wedding, right? Because we're texting the score and analysis throughout the game. So this poor man.
There's got to be a bar area. That's the other thing. Like if you're at a typical banquet hall, there's usually some place where the kitchen will have a TV. There'll be a TV someplace, I think.
It's Fox 5, national television. Now, what I will say to Pat's point, we'll do a service as the NJ.com Rutgers text service. We will personally text you every play-by-play on your line exclusively if you want to be on the dance floor and staring at your phone. We'll gladly do that. Whatever service we need to do.
She's going to be given the toast. And my daughter, the special times. Hang on. Holy crap! The special times we had. It's going to be great. Yeah, I can't. That poor guy. He's put your phone away. Watch it record it, watch it, turn it off later.
This might be the perfect anecdote for our story of leading up to the game of how it's the most anticipated Rutgers game in a long. This might be the perfect guy to call. So Steve, save his number, please.
I've got his number. You gotta get a call. Yes, that's a good idea. There you go. All right, thanks for the question. One more actually. And the basketball question that's going to segue, I think, into our what else segment here. Hoops. Everyone else will go football. So I'll go in a different direction. When do we start to panic about the 2025 basketball recruiting class?
Oof,
Brian?
This is a perfectly timed question. And I think it's a fair question because we're almost in October and Rutgers has yet to get a 2025 commit. A lot of their top targets early in the cycle have either eliminated Rutgers from their consideration or committed other places. But it sounds like Rutgers is on the verge of ending that drought and getting its first commit. Javonte Ware, a center out of North Carolina, 3-star, is set to announce his announcement today at 2:00. By the time you listen to this podcast, you will know what decision he makes. It sounds like Rutgers is in good position with him. They hosted him on an official visit this month during the Akron game. And it seems like they're trending towards landing him as their first commit of the class. at a key position at center, which we've talked about ad nauseum in the offseason through the transfer portal. Now they have a guy, assuming he commits to Rutgers, that they can develop going forward. And they also hosted a forward, Kelvin Odie, from New England on an official visit this weekend. TJ Thompson is the lead recruiter there, as he is with most New England players, and Rutgers is seemingly doing a good job there. We shall see. And listen, the long shots recruit that still has Rutgers in consideration, Kion Anthony, son of Carmelo Anthony. He's taking a visit to Rutgers at the start of October, and while all signs point to him going to Syracuse, much like all signs pointed to Dylan Harper landing at Rutgers, you never know until he officially decides. I would be shocked if he didn't go to Syracuse, frankly, but Rutgers is still in it, and they're going to make their pitch when he comes to Piscataway. Maybe Melo comes. It won't be during a football weekend because Rutgers will be in Nebraska, but maybe Melo will take some pictures around the rack.
Yeah. In some ways, you got to be crazy to think about anything beyond this season in basketball. But it is, I will say, I think it's right to be concerned, and not just because obviously you're not going to get another Ace Bailey, you're not getting another Dylan Harper. I mean, this is sort of the moonshot year for that. I get it, but I thought that getting those guys would at least, make Rutgers a regular, like they'd be the 4-star. They had gotten to that level now where they were going to just, get guys like that. It hasn't really happened. That said, the other alternative, of course, is to live in the portal these days. The problem is we know that that's not exactly a viable path for Rutgers in a world where that costs money. So yeah, it's interesting, but please enjoy this season. Worry about that some other day. You would hope.
The same issue is in high school as well. I mean, you need for these high-level 5-star kids, you need the same, money as the transfer portal targets. Like, that's just the reality. And Rutgers is clearly lagging behind in, as we've talked ad nauseum about, in that arena. What I will say about momentum, right? I agree that it is concerning that this 25 class is looking a lot closer to the first classes under Steve Peichel than they are this class. I think that once these guys take the court and play and fill out the rack and some excitement, that'll build some things. Maybe not for the 2025 class. It might be a little too late for that as far as their top targets. But in 2026, I think that certainly gives them some boost and something to, you could talk about Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey until your face is purple. But when you have video and you have media, you have pictures of the rack, of the atmosphere created by those guys and what can be done at Rutgers, that becomes a much stronger selling point than just saying, hey, we got these two guys. Why don't you become another highly ranked kid, come to Rutgers? That'll be a little bit more powerful.
Yeah, great point.
Yep. All right. What else? We got Evan Simon at 6 touchdowns. It's funny. I saw a tweet about this, and now I realized I didn't look it up to make sure. It could have been a fake tweet, and we're just talking about it as if it's fact. Evan Simon had 6 touchdowns. I don't know, touchdown passes for Temple. I would not have. I mean, that's wild.
Yeah, that is wild.
Yeah. Would they play?
They cut it down to 5. The stats corrected to 5 touchdowns.
Okay.
4 passing, 1 rushing. This is his second start for the Owls. And it was against, I want to say, Ohio. I could be wrong. Let me look it up. Live fact check. What's your guesses, guys? What's your guesses? I'm saying Ohio.
Okay. Ohio sounds good. Kent State. Kent State's bad.
No, Kent State played Penn State. It was like that.
Yep.
They gave up 700 yards of offense.
Yes, that's right.
Yep.
Yep.
You guys won't guess it. It does end in state. You won't guess it. I'll give you guys one more guess if you want.
Illinois
Alcorn State.
Utah State. Utah State flew out to Philadelphia.
They were good.
And got spanked.
Huh. How about
I
that?
thought so too, but maybe they are good, but Evan Simon's better.
There you go. Who would have guessed? And Gavin Wimsatt also scored his first touchdown in garbage time against Ohio.
There
Kentucky
you go.
Fans, what? We're throwing out eye emojis like you wouldn't believe, like the good eye emojis or the roll like, look at this eye emojis. We got ourselves a quarterback, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Gavin Wimsatt comes out for garbage time, throws a nice deep ball, runs in for a touchdown. The eye emojis of like, oh, quarterback controversy? Is our second quarterback better? Free Wimsatt. I saw some of that on the fringes of the Kentucky fan base on Twitter. I don't think it's going to happen, but it is cool to see other fan bases excited about Gavin Wimsatt. And I think that the reaction from Rutgers fans to these things is always interesting, right? There are guys that go and are replies to these tweets and say he's a bust. He did this. Oh, of course he ran for a touchdown. He couldn't pass the ball, whatever. And there's always the other side of fans that say happy for him, rooting for him, all that stuff. Very divisive reactions to anything Gavin Wimsatt does these days in Kentucky.
Yeah. Also, if you thought that having Gia German on the podcast would put whatever jinx the women's soccer team, it did not happen. They won again on a beautiful kick to Riley Tiernan for the goal. A Tiernan assist, I think, or was it past her? A long pass I saw.
I believe Riley Tiernan had an assist and set the program record for career assists. She's at 30 now.
I just love that play because as my daughter is, of course, 12-year-old soccer, and we constantly in the crowd, like the smart dads are like, you gotta find feet. Come on, you gotta find feet with those passes. And I'm always like, you gotta kick the ball as hard as you possibly can, and just hope that there's someone there to pick it up. And that's what happened. It was a great pass, kicked it very far. A Rutgers player picked it up and put it in. So there's proof that my theory on soccer is the right theory, Brian. We've lost the last 2 games 11-0.
You are the Sam Allardyce of this podcast. You will not get the reference, but he is the classic English manager where he says all this new age tiki-taka nonsense where you try to pass the ball at the back. Forget that. Do meat and potatoes, old-fashioned football. You pass the ball to the center back kicks the ball 50 yards down the field to a target 9. He chests the ball down. He passes it to the winger. The winger shoots it from outside the box, top corner. It's a goal. None of that other fancy nonsense. Just put the ball in the back of the net.
The problem is when you pass it up in the middle, then the other girl takes it and happens every time. So there you go. That's what I sit there on just like, come on, just kick the ball hard. And the other problem, since we're talking about my daughter's soccer team, she had 2 great centering passes and the other girls blew it. And I'm like I'm texting with another text group. I'm like, got to write a column ripping. It's just absolute going lip shit on this girl. Got to find the back of the net with a pass like that. Wouldn't it be great? All of a sudden, if I suddenly write a column on the lack of sound scoring fundamentals in youth soccer, you know the reason. Nothing to do with anything but that. All right. Anything else? We done?
Well, a couple hoops notes. Really quickly, I wanted to also talk about. We could start with the Big Ten schedule. Came out yesterday. We knew the opponents they would face.
About this. Yes.
Not yesterday. Sorry, last week. We knew the opponents already, but now we have the order. Exciting! This week or maybe next week we'll get the times.
Whoa.
Yeah.
The slow drip from the league is infuriating. Anyway, was hoping any of you guys had any takeaways from the 2024-25 Big Ten schedule for Rutgers men's basketball.
Yeah, I guess the big talking point was whether the game against Michigan State is moved to Madison Square Garden. Some people love it. Some people hate it. Some fans, of course, on both sides of there. So I personally, going back to the last Michigan State game at the Garden, I thought it was just a great day for Rutgers, right? You saw a lot of important people there. The place was packed with Rutgers people. It felt like a home game. It may not have been the RAC, but it felt very pro Rutgers. And I thought it was just a great opportunity. So that's how I would look at it if I was a fan.
Yeah. First thing I looked at the schedule was when the West Coast trip was going to be. The fact that it's in mid-February at Oregon, at Washington is sort of interesting because I can't imagine either one of those teams is going to be great. So that's kind of a critical stretch of the season, right? I mean, if Rutgers is as good as we hope they'd be, it would be for positioning in the tournament. And if they're not as good, it could be for the tournament. So that's sort of fascinating. They've got 4 road games in a 5-game stretch there. At Oregon, at Washington, home at USC, and then at Michigan, at Purdue. Before finishing it off at Minnesota. So that's kind of what I saw. Brian, what did you see?
I think the West Coast thing is a great call. I was very curious to see how they would, work that. I think to do it all in one trip makes sense and is optimal for Rutgers, and the opponents, like you said, could not have worked out better for Rutgers. To me, the 2 starts of Big Ten play stuck out to me. They go at Ohio State, a place they have never won before, a house of horrors, immediately, well, I shouldn't say immediately, a week after coming back from Las Vegas and playing at Kennesaw State, then playing Houston, Alabama, and Notre Dame in a 4-day span or 5-day span in Las Vegas. Brutal stretch to start Big Ten play. Brutal opponent, brutal venue. You get a little bit of relief by hosting Penn State 3 days later as your second December Big Ten game. Penn State isn't expected to be good, but still, that's going to be a tough ask for them to go to Ohio. after Las Vegas. And then to restart Big Ten play in January, after you kind of end December with some soft bye games, you go at Indiana, to Bloomington, at Assembly Hall against a team that's being picked to win the Big Ten by, again, take it for what it's worth, by people that predicted Rutgers to finish 15th in the Big Ten. But still, hard place to play against a really good team, tough atmosphere. The fans that do not like Rutgers basketball and are just dying to heckle Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey and the entire team. So that place is going to be a snake pit. 2 really, really tough road games for Rutgers to start Big Ten play.
And it's fascinating because they should be 5-0 going into Vegas. Notre Dame, I don't know if you would think that Rutgers would be favored in the first game in Vegas. If they split the next 2 against Alabama and Houston, it's a big ask. Those are probably 2 of the top 10 teams in the country. I would think you'd be 7-1 going into that game at Ohio State. I mean, you win that game, you're a top 10 team. So
I certainly think they can get ranked. I don't know if they'll be ranked in the preseason. I don't have a vote in the basketball AP poll. I don't know if they'll be ranked in the preseason, but I think that
they'll be ranked if they come out of Vegas 7-1.
I agree. If you beat one of those 2 teams, I agree. But that's a lot easier said than done.
Right. Yeah. All right. We'll have plenty of time to break that down, certainly. And we'll be back later this week to break down Washington. If you're wondering, we'll have a podcast on Wednesday, go through all the matchups, talk about the crowd, talk about the scene, talk about the stakes, play a little trivia game. Until then, fellas, have fun. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at nj.com/insider.